Good morning. We're going to get started this morning with an invocation led by Pastor Roy Montgomery of Estes Park Church of Christ, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Connor Joseph of Boy Scouts Troop 4. Please stand as you are able.
Let us pray. Father God, in the name of your Son, Jesus the Christ, I beg you to fill our city, our state, and our national government, all the leaders with wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and civility. Father God, grant them favor, increase their faith, and prepare them, O God, to pursue your purpose. Draw them to you and cause them to know you and fulfill your purposes through their elected officers. Lord God, we pray for all political leaders and public servants. May they serve all the people with genuine care and compassion. Father God, inspire them to always seek the common good for all men. May they be your humble instruments to bring peace, justice, and harmony to our city and society. Dear God, we know all power and authority is in your hands, but you have given them authority to these leaders in this body to protect and guide us in our city. Father God, today I ask you, would you give all the leaders in this body wisdom, discernment, strength, courage, and resolve. Father God, keep them healthy, keep them safe, and keep them rested so they can guide our city through these troubling times. In the blessed and powerful name of your dear Son, our Savior and our Redeemer, Jesus the Christ, I offer up this most sincere prayer. Amen. Amen.
Would you please remove any non-religious headgear? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Pastor Montgomery, and thank you, Connor. All right, I call this meeting of the City Council to order, and we have a couple of presentations that I will make from the front. If our friends from the Parks Department could join me, that would be great. Well, once again, it's time to celebrate Parks and Recreation and to be reminded a little bit about one of our city's most important departments. I would ask the clerk to read this proclamation.
Whereas the City of Oklahoma City provides a variety of parks, recreational venues, and services for the use and enjoyment of the public. And whereas the mission of the city's Parks and Recreation Department is to provide cultural, social, and recreational experiences to our community so they have the opportunity to cultivate wellness and enjoy a healthy lifestyle. And whereas MAPS 4 includes over $400 million in funding toward parks and recreation projects, including resources to upgrade 105 neighborhood and community parks, youth soccer facilities, and senior centers. And whereas the Oklahoma City Parks and Recreation Department manages more than 170 public parks, covering more than 5,000 acres and 100 miles of trails. This includes spaces for popular sports, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas parks and recreation are integral parts of communities throughout this country, including Oklahoma City, promoting time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas parks and recreation programming and educational activities such as out-of-school time programming, nutrition services, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas ensure that ecological beauty and environmental well-being of our community, providing places for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas parks and recreation increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and Oklahoma City recognizes the benefits derived from our parks and recreation resources. Now therefore, I, David Holt, Mayor of the City of Oklahoma City, do hereby proclaim July 2024 to be Parks and Recreation Month in Oklahoma City.
Thank you. Well, I think that covers it pretty well. We are so appreciative for our Parks Department. We've got a representation of the team here today. Obviously, there are hundreds more across the city. And we'd love to hear a few words from Melinda, our Parks Director.
Thank you, Mayor Holt. Yes, we have hundreds more of, this is a very small representation, mighty representation of all of our staff that are out there today, working on everything from mowing grass to making our parks look absolutely beautiful and presentable, to taking care of our children who are at our summer camps this year, gearing up for athletic events over the weekends, fishing derbies, you name it, they're out there working really hard for our residents. And we do that with pride. We do that with service. They're all such professionals, and I'm very proud to be able to represent them this morning. And just thank again the residents for their support of our department and our city as a whole.
Excellent. Let's hear it for our Parks Department. All right, Arlene Vogel, where are you at? All right, come on down, Arlene. Well, Arlene, you are our City Employee of the Month, and we would love to hear a little bit more about your work. And so I'm going to ask the clerk to read this resolution.
Whereas Arlene Vogel has been a city employee for 1 year with the Utilities Department. And whereas Arlene Vogel is an administrative coordinator supporting utilities engineering and private development. And whereas Arlene Vogel verifies and submits all work orders for construction and Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality paperwork correctly and on time. And whereas Arlene Vogel is the first to jump in and help when needed, demonstrating to her coworkers what a servant's heart truly is. And whereas Arlene Vogel's drive and attention to detail are key to managing the volume of work she handles and has made her a big part of the continued success of her department. And whereas in addition to her administrative duties, Arlene Vogel takes on the organization of staff parties by cooking the food and managing the setup and cleanup herself. And whereas this council desires to recognize Arlene Vogel for her dedication, compassion, and commitment to the residents of the City of Oklahoma City. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Arlene Vogel, July 2024 South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month.
Thank you so much. Well, this is a resolution, so let's pass this real quick, and then we're going to talk about the menu for these parties. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. I wish to vote aye. Passes unanimously. So, I think we had an employee either last month or the month before who had also just been here a year. So we've got some dynamic new employees, and you are obviously in that category. So congratulations on this honor. Thanks for all you do. And we'd love to hear a few words from you. But first, tell us what's on the menu when you cook for the staff parties.
So our last staff party that we were celebrating National Barbecue Day. Okay. So we had smoked pork, smoked pork shredded sandwiches, and then we also had smoked turkey. I smoked both of those overnight before, and then different staff brought in different side items to go with it. So nice full meal.
Absolutely. No better way to bond. We'll say a few words.
So I don't have a lot to say. I am fairly new, but I'm very honored to have been put in for this award and to have gotten it. I've only been with the city for a year, but from day one, the people at the city have made me feel like I was a part of the city, an important part of the city, and have made me feel like a part of the team. The city has a lot of amazing things, but their people, I think, is what is truly the greatest thing they have. These people back here that are sitting back there, that's a huge part of our team. And the team dynamic that we have, the way that they welcomed me, they've taught me, and the way that my leaders have mentored me and how they want me to grow really speaks a lot for the city of Oklahoma City. And so thanks to these amazing people back there, I hope to spend many, many years here at the city.
Excellent. Well said. Let's hear it for Arlene. All right, still remaining on the Office of the Mayor agenda are appointments to Bond Advisory, Civic Center, Convention and Visitors Commission, Housing Authority, Mary Gardens Foundation, and the Planning Commission. We could take those items B through G with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, item 4, items from council. We have item A. This is just a public hearing on this ordinance that was introduced at our last meeting. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
Okay, so we'll advance to item B. This is an ordinance to be introduced and adopted with an emergency, declaring a 180-day moratorium on the acceptance of new applications for home sharing. And this is introduced by council members Hammond and Nice. Councilwoman Hammond?
Yeah, I'd like to invite Laura up to maybe talk about the more technical pieces of this, but this is just a follow-up to Councilwoman Nice's questions from a few weeks ago when we did introduce and send over the ordinance to update our short-term rental policies over to the various commissions. So we just kind of wanted to request a moratorium that's very narrowly tailored to match the ordinance. So Laura, if you can kind of explain that, that's all I have.
Sure, Laura McDevitt in the City Attorney's Office. So as you all are aware, an ordinance amendment has been proposed, excuse me, and is currently being considered by Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment for recommendation that would place some maximum density requirements on new applications for special exceptions to allow home sharing. And so this moratorium would essentially enact that density provision now by prohibiting the receipt of or processing of new applications for special exceptions that would exceed the density requirement, which I believe is 10% per block going forward.
Does that include people that are coming in to re-up their permits from, I mean, the Board of Adjustments every other Thursday has 25 people here just re-upping their existing permit for their Airbnb to make it for a longer amount of time, or?
This would only impact new applications, not applications for renewals.
So the people that are in limbo right now, because in all honesty, the people that show up to get permits for Airbnb got caught. I mean, they're not here because they're trying to do the right thing. They're here because somebody told them they had to be. So what about all those people that are in limbo right now running an Airbnb that fall now into this 180-day category of not being able to get legal?
Right. So those people who have not yet submitted an application, their application would not be able to be processed, just like it would not be able to be processed if the ordinance as currently proposed were to be adopted. So there would not be an avenue for those folks to ever come into compliance because they would exceed the density requirements in the new ordinance.
How would we monitor the density? How do we know what's 10%?
So I think that's going to be up to staff to determine the number of dwelling units per block and then figure out what 10%, what has already been licensed, and then what would be in excess of that percentage.
We've had some discussion with some vendors that provide this service, that do this kind of assessment, And it's likely, you know, if we go forward with the resolution or the ordinance, that we would have to put that in place. We aren't going to have that in place immediately, but that's something that we'll have to assess.
And we're capable of doing the percentage part of it?
I believe so.
I mean, with people selling, buying, moving,
Yeah.
we'll
It'll
be
be
able to keep
it'll
those
be a
records up.
challenge for sure. It'll be based on the ones that are registered, what we have registered.
What if there's less than 10 houses on the block?
So it would still, if there were one house that already is an Airbnb, then any new applications would be prohibited because then that would exceed 10%.
No, what if there's 9 houses on the block and someone applies, right? Would that exceed 10%?
9 houses on the block and there are currently no home sharing establishments, then they would be allowed to proceed.
Even though they're over that 10%?
If there aren't any out of the 9,
Okay, let's say there's 5 houses, right, on the block.
yeah.
If one applies, is that over 10%? That would be 20%, right?
Right, that would exceed 10%, but I think under those circumstances, my interpretation would be that that person would be allowed to proceed with their application because there currently are 0%.
Another question that I have is, when we're looking at the ADU ordinance, we're limiting it from 59th Street to 63rd Street. So do the people that live south of 59th Street and north of 63rd Street fall into this moratorium as well? Because in my mind, the question on the Airbnb is, how does it affect the ADUs? That's what the Planning Commission spent 2 hours talking about. That's what the Board of Adjustment has spent lots of time talking about. So in their discovery of how this is all going to play out, there's a lot of gray area and really unanswered questions. Then I'm with Brad and Todd on the enforcement issue. How are we going to enforce this at all? I mean, at all, other than neighbors calling in to complain.
Well, that's where Councilman Cooper has talked about when we introduced the ordinance already with this language in it. I don't know enough about that platform you were talking about that you were interested in. That's more of like a proactive reconciling, I guess, the permits we have with the listings on these different sites.
So is this on? Okay. My understanding is that, and it's all originated when really Councilman Stonecipher and I were just getting a lot of complaints from residents. And so I asked Assistant City Manager McDermott to look at the best practices across the entire country. There was really no guidance except for go see what other cities are doing, right? The main concerns we were hearing were parties, right? The kind of noise ordinance violations. The density, I mean, I have a lot of people in Ward 2, as you've heard me almost bi-weekly now say, we are very concerned about our existing housing inventory, which is very limited, that people largely from out of the city and out of the state gobbling up like Pac-Man these properties and turning them into Airbnbs, to say nothing of even the ADUs, right? Just literally the existing home at the front of the property. And so it was during those discussions where Assistant City Manager McDermott explained to me, and maybe Craig can fill in details if I miss them here, is that there's this company that has like software where literally they would look at who is licensed with the city to operate an Airbnb. They would then simultaneously look at column B, and those are all of the listed home shares online. And then there would be like a Venn diagram overlap, the software to be able to see, okay, well, who's saying, come rent an Airbnb, come stay here, versus over here, the list that they would have from the city of who's licensed to say, hey, come here and rent. Does that make sense? Because that's what's happening, is a lot of people, too many people rather, are saying, come rent here, and they have it posted online, but they have not sought or received approval from the city. And the way, as you all mentioned, residents right now, what's happening is residents are seeing online the listed property and going, whoa, 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 whoa. This isn't, you have no license to do this. So instead of that being at the task of the resident, this company would be able to do that. And I think there might be several companies. I think we might have to issue a request for proposals and have them compete to see which one can offer that service. So there's two things happening at once. City Manager Freeman's nodding his head like I am saying the right things, and Councilman Hinkle, you're looking like you got some confusion questions. So I'll let both of you take it from here.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, that we go out for an RFP on this, and I think there are multiple platforms that provide this service. I think to the question of the ADU, and we'd have to work through with legal, but I think if you're calculating your percentages, an ADU would be counted as an additional unit that's available when you're calculating the total percentage.
And this is just, I just want to point out, and I believe it's the way the ordinance is proposed, is this is for special exception. So this is for non-owner occupied dwellings. So specifically what Councilman Cooper spoke to of someone just purchasing a home, and even if they apply for the special exception, not living on that property and solely operating as a short-term rental. So I think the Airbnb conversation is somewhat part of this, but it's not as, it's really more about like the main property dwelling that's non-owner occupied, and putting a moratorium on that while we wait to hear the recommendations back from the Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment, and whether we end up adopting the ordinance as it was proposed.
And if I might, this is actually saturating quite a bit of more of our communities, especially those that are a part of our attraction areas. So this is where my concern is, as far as folks these dwellings being not owner occupied, but instead our neighbors and our residents in our neighborhoods are confused by, well, what is this? What's going on? Why do I need to show up? You know, those types of questions are questions I continue to receive in certain neighborhoods, because quite frankly, when we look at those same attraction neighborhoods, those are where our homes are boarded up, abandoned, and they are quite cheap to purchase and turn into these types of uses. So this helps us to look at that again for our residents as well as our city and our community. And again, we're getting ready and preparing for years to come for some saturation in certain communities as well because of events that are going to happen. So if we are able to look at this now and figure out how this will work for the years ahead, this helps us to establish a way to do that. So this isn't asking us, you know, this isn't for homeowners, people who actually live in their houses and want to do that. That's not what this is. But I hope you all understand the concerns for our neighbors in some of our specific neighborhoods that are directly impacted by some of the saturation that has happened and can continue to happen if we don't just take a pause and look at it. Not to say again that it can't happen for home shares. I mean, you know, I've stayed in one, so I understand what it is and how it works. But for our communities, we just want to make sure that we're looking at it with an extra lens, if you will, to do this thing right.
I have been listening to a meditation app lately that has different focus at the end of each of them, and one of them was understanding last night, and I want to go back to what I heard, or the facial stuff I'm seeing, and then the questions. It's important to ask questions when we don't understand things. So I'm seeing still some confusion, and I just think we need to air that and figure out what the confusion is. I'm curious, I guess is what I'm saying. Like what questions do we have? And if it's enforcement or what have you, then we need to figure that out, and then we need to figure out how to address those very specific questions. We can't just sit in confusion or disagreement.
Oh, personally, the 180-day moratorium doesn't concern me.
Okay.
The quagmire of the sign code ordinance rewrite of 2.5, 3 years later, we're still having a 180-day moratorium on signs. So I'm not necessarily against this, but I'm really looking forward to the deep dive that the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustments is both doing on this, because they are really doing a deep dive on it. And that gave me great comfort when the Planning Commission continued this, because they had questions and they wanted their questions answered. So
Is
Yes.
it the lesser of 180 days or when planning and the Board of Adjustments comes back to us?
So it would be 180 days or the time that a new home sharing ordinance is effective, whichever is sooner.
Okay, so if it comes back to us sooner than 180 days, we can vote to approve the new ordinance and move forward with it.
Correct.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that would then terminate the moratorium once the new ordinance is in effect.
Well, if the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustments are already doing this, why are we doing this? Seems like an extra step.
Well, I think to Councilman Nice's concern, the issue in some neighborhoods, that the number one piece of that ordinance proposal that I continue to hear concerns about is the density of, again, like non-owner occupied short-term rentals being operated, multiple on a block. And so the taking of those units off the long-term rental market or the purchasing market, exacerbating housing affordability and access is of a concern to me, and is something that when Councilman Nice brought this up a few weeks ago, I think made sense to me to say, let's take a pause on these applications while all these things are being considered for this one area. There are other things in the ordinance that are being looked at that aren't in this, particularly because I felt, and it sounds like Councilman Nice's feelings are, that the density piece is of particular concern to residents and again, is exacerbating existing issues within sort of our housing crisis. And so was something that we wanted to request a pause on, similar, I think, to the sign ordinance, hopefully not with, it sounds like, hopefully that process, I know the sign code was a lot more broad and deep. So I think that's probably why that process took much longer than I would expect this to. And it sounds like legal expects it to probably just take a month or 2 or 3, so that this would hopefully sunset once we adopted that new, or we just let it expire if not, so.
And also, council doesn't, or the Planning Commission or the other bodies don't have the ability to enact the moratorium, a moratorium, is that right?
No.
Because I was going straight to your question, you're like, why not have
Well,
them?
but the applications go before them, and if they're not accepting any applications right now, that kind of already does what a moratorium does, if I understood this correctly.
But they are, right, accepting
No,
applications?
it's every other Thursday. That's the whole crux of the meeting, is applications for home sharing.
And are we approving those at the
On a
at this time?
case-by-case basis. They put all kinds of restrictions on them of parking, on-street parking, number of beds, how many people can be there, quiet hours. I mean, the Board of Adjustments does a large part of the governing work of this. And the reward for being a good host is you get a 3-year permit instead of a 1-year permit. Or a 5-year permit, I think, is the longest that they can have that. But once again, there's the guy who wants to build the barn on 2 acres that can't get permission, and the other 27 applications are people coming in either asking for forgiveness because they're already operating an Airbnb, or they're just renewing their permit because they've been a good operator, or they haven't been a good operator and the house is full and people are complaining, and so they either don't let them or stifle them to back to a year or. I mean, I don't know what the Board of Adjustments is going to do if we take this away from them. They'll have one case.
We're going to lighten their load.
I think what we asked how many about that this might affect, and we were hearing there were about, I think, was it 7 to 8 per meeting that were new special exceptions that this may apply to.
I believe that is accurate, yes. But I think about 65% or so of the Board of Adjustments agenda every other Thursday is special exception applications for home sharing.
What is the definition of short-term?
I believe it's fewer than 30 days.
Yeah, 29 days.
29 days?
This doesn't in any way affect like our transitional housing partners, does it? Where we're intentionally putting somebody in a home that's not occupied by the owner with the intent to move them into permanent housing in the future?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions or discussion, I suppose the authors might want to move their ordinance.
I'll move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 8-1, and it appears you would like to adopt it with an emergency as well.
Yes, I will move the emergency.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. This requires 7 votes. Passes 8-1 and with the required supermajority. Okay, now we're at item 5, City Manager reports. Mr. City Manager.
I do not have any reports other than claims and payroll today. We don't have anything to report on that, but it can be found at okc.gov.
Thank you. Item 6, Journal of Council Proceedings. We've got items A and B. We can take with one motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 7, request for uncontested continuances. Is there anything on your list, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, beginning on page 18. Item 11Q1, unsecured structures. All these items will be stricken from the agenda. Item E, 1317 Northwest 1st Street, the owner is secured. Item I, 3805 Northwest 25th Street, the owner is secured. Item K, 1720 Northwest 30th Street, to re-notify the owner. And item L, 1245 Southeast 39th Street, the owner has secured. Continuing on page 18, item 11R1, abandoned buildings. These are all stricken from the agenda. Item E, 1720 Northwest 30th Street, to re-notify. Item F, 1245 Southeast 39th Street, the owner has secured. Then on page 18, item 11S, 1 and 2, we're going to strike. And then on page 19, item 11U, we'll strike this item that was calling for an executive session. There's been a change in the scheduled session or the scheduled mediation, and so we'll come back with that later on to the council. That's all the items that I have.
All right, thank you. Item 8, revocable permits and events. Item 8A is a revocable permit with the Riversport Foundation for the River Bowl on August 3rd, and we have Tricia Downey here to say a few words.
Good morning. My name is Tricia Downey. I am the National Events Manager at Riversport. Riversport's welcoming you all to cheer on the alumni and current students of Oklahoma City Schools during the River Bowl Classic on August 3rd from 6 to 9 at night. It's their 3rd annual, and it just keeps getting bigger and better and more exciting. It is hosted by the Oklahoma City Black Alumni Coalition and was created to foster inclusive rowing community and celebrate Oklahoma City's Black culture. Participants will compete in events like kayaking and dragon boat races. They've been practicing the last 4 months. It's very exciting to see them banter amongst each other and just enjoying their companies. They also have DJ and other exciting events planned. If you've been to an event, a rowing event at Riversport, you have a serene calm about everything, and this is just really exciting with DJ music blasting and friendly rivalry. It is quite the sight. Crews have included alumni from Oklahoma City Metro Schools, including Douglas, Dungy, John Marshall, Millwood, Northeast Academy, now Clausen School of Advanced Studies and Northeast Academy, Northwest Clausen, Southeast Star Spencer. Attendance is free. Food trucks will be there, and if you've never had a banana cream pie taco from Soul Sister, tacos, you are missing out. So just can't tell you how entertaining that evening is, and just welcome you all. I'm going to add that I have been working closely with the city parks who are honored today, and they've been nothing but a joy and professional and always had the right answers. So they also helped me get permits for this event, and hoping you all can make it.
All right. Councilwoman Nice?
Yes, so basically what she's saying is it's a big party on the river. And it's a fun party on the river. Last year, I was one of the co-MCs, and that was my first time to actually attend. My high school, my alma mater, Northeast High School, was one of those row teams. And it is definitely a friendly rivalry. And also, we in the city we have bragging rights about this type of event, because this is the only type of event that has happened in the country for African Americans to be on the river in this amount of number and magnitude. So we get to claim this as our own, as far as an event for Oklahoma City to revel in it and be excited about, in the ways that we include all cultures and all communities in what happens on the river. So very grateful for this event and for the mastermind behind it, Shantae Alexander, and her hard work, as well as her board members and what they do. And if you are able to come, please come. It is on August the 3rd. And what time does it kick off?
6 to 9.
6 to 9 p.m. So it's last year it was a little rainy weather, but this year I think it's going to be nice. So with that, I will move for approval.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we're going to recess the council meeting and convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. We do have someone who has signed up to speak on item A, Michael Washington.
What a wonderful, lovely day, everyone. Wonderful. Michael Washington, 100 with a park with a P on it, place. How's everyone this morning? I'm a bit stumbled, of course not for words, that is, but with plans and specifications to be advertised for bids, Project MP / 0620, Devon Park Stadium Improvements, 2801 Northeast 50th Street, Ward 7. Oh, but let me tell every one of you today, I don't know to agree or disagree in this bidding process, because I don't even know what we're bidding on. But I do see here Devon Park Stadium Improvements. I might be slightly taken aback because I don't recall any of this stadium improvement, the stadium being there. Northeast 50th Street. Is that on the northeast side? Are we talking about the old park area? Used to be Lincoln Park? Or are we talking about further on up by Remington Park? There's a little area there. Either way, it is a bit not transparent here. Because we're bidding on what? Plans and specifications to be advertised for bids. For bids on a highway, a potato chip truck being allowed to come through. Interesting, isn't it? Or maybe we're going to bid to see how fast Michael Washington can run, because I run pretty doggone fast at 68 years old. Still got it. Y'all see that? This is what I want to know about. And others have a right to know as citizens what in the heck is going on here. Let's not just write something up and expect for someone to accept it, no matter who you are that goes with me, my mama, anybody else, I'm not going to allow anything like that to go on. Now then, it has nothing personal to do with anyone, but what it does have to do with transparency. It has to do with me knowing what this Devon Park Stadium improvements is going to be about. Now, are we talking about bidding for who's going to take a project to do the work to redo it? I don't know. It didn't tell me anything.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you, my old 37 always jumps up when I love talking. Plans and specifications to be advertised for bids. In closing, because I only have 18, we need to be more clear here. The citizens who will be paying for this, other than hard taxpaying dollars, deserves better. I have nothing against Devon Energy. With 3 seconds left, Arnold Schwarzenegger said, boom, I will be back.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the slip said OCMFA, but the citizen actually spoke about an item on the PPA docket. All right, we have items A through H on the MFA docket that we could take with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. And now we will adjourn OCMFA and convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, where we have items A through D we could take with one motion.
If I might, Mayor, I would like to read the background of what Mr. Washington asked about. This is a project that provides for stadium improvements, including waterproofing repairs on the elevator shafts, concrete repairs, traffic coating on the concourse levels, and new metal soffit panels. Construction is scheduled to begin fall 2024 and to be completed in spring 2025. Estimated construction costs $160,000 for your reference. And if you are able to look at our agendas, they are posted on Fridays, and that gives you all that information that I just read to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we could take a motion on items A through D. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Well, now we'll adjourn OCPPA and reconvene as the council. We're on item 9, the consent docket. We have scheduled presentation for BV and CK. Is there anything else that a council member wishes to pull out for a separate comment or vote?
I'd like to, for a separate vote on C and CZ, and then just to hear a little bit more about AV.
Okay, so separate vote on item C as in cat, and then CZ.
Correct.
And then what was the third thing?
Just to hear some more about AV as in Victor.
Okay, oh yes, got it. Okay.
For me, more information on item CN.
Okay. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll take them in order. We'll have a separate vote on item C. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say, or we can just go into a motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes on item 9C. Passes 6-3. Next up is item AV. You wanted to speak to this?
Yes, this item was actually on the last agenda. I'm sorry, AV, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. That was just to get additional information on the project at Riversport.
Yes, that was the request, I think. Councilwoman Hammond?
So at the we're essentially at the end of MAPS 3, and we have funds left over, and Whitewater Facility was one of those MAPS 3 projects. And we're working in conjunction with Public Works on two things there. One of them is work to look at a study for the entire area, also what things can be added to the Whitewater facility that weren't added when we did construction. So we were very concerned about budget at the time, and there were things that were left out, like grandstands. That's the first thing that comes to mind. There's a fairly good-sized list of things, things that help with operations, but the grandstands, maybe another set of restrooms, those kind of things. The $685,826 is to look at feasibility of those items, and then also for the entire district. There's never been really master planning for that entire district. Then $3 million comes out of excess funds from the convention center, the $5 million that we had there, and that is to do some, I don't want to call it necessarily repairs, but revise the system that is in the bottom of the Whitewater facility. So remember that the Whitewater is formed with those blue blocks that are in there. And those blue blocks are a lot like Legos. They have threaded rods that go through them, and they attach at the bottom. And that system at the bottom of the channels there is what's called Unistrut. It's a U-shaped channel that allows those bolts to go in there. They were stainless steel. They were the most corrosive resistant thing that we had at the time. We knew that in the years to come, something that's constantly left underwater is going to corrode. I don't care what it's made out of. And it has come time that we address repairing some of that system so that the blocks stay in place.
Okay, thank you. And we have a citizen who signed up to speak on this item, Michael Washington.
It is I, again, everyone, I again. Sorry, sir. This gentleman to my far left, actually slightly closer than that, has asked that this illustrious horseshoe guest of ours transfer funds that were targeted for one area of study and advancement to move it to another. Are we going to allow such a thing to be done simply because we have connections with the city of Oklahoma City and certain business adventures? I should think not. Here's why. We want to transfer $3,685,826 from the MAPS 3 Convention Center budget project, MC-/0749. And yet we only have $5 million left over, as he states. I don't know that that's a fact. I'm not questioning this man, by the way. But there are some concerns that I do have in this transference of power relating to its money to fund river sport improvements. Now, I don't know about this channel, U-shaped channel. Oh, does that go like this? Maybe a little, maybe like a little dance. You know. You know what? Minute 13. I really don't necessarily have a problem with that, but is it actually going to the projects for which it is targeted and designed for? Who oversees this transfer of money? How much at one time goes to this particular project to build a floor or to put a wall in a socket or whatever? Does it all come out at one time? What bank is it actually laid into before it does? Who approves it all? I know y'all doing that part. Michael is not being an antisocial. I love everybody. But when you're talking about transferring large sums of money like this here, this isn't something you take lightly.
30 seconds remaining.
That 30 seconds go again. In closing, I want you all to think about what's being said. Because if this is going for this improvement thing, I believe it may be a good thing. Oklahoma City River Sport Improvement. I don't agree much on this gentleman's topics, but on this one, I'm going to let that go. Thank y'all for indulging me. Thank you so much. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Next up is BV, and we have a short presentation. on
Yes, BV, this is the item that actually we had on the last council agenda. We had set the public hearing, and the public hearing date was incorrect. Once we identified that, Municipal Counselor's Office recommended that we just run the item again, restate it, and put correct dates in there. So it's the same item that Jeff Mulder presented to us last time on the air service incentive. And so we're just restating this item, and it'll come back on the 30th for public hearing and final consideration.
Okay. Next up is CK. We have a presentation on this item relative to the Maps 4 Diversion Hub.
Yes, David Todd, our MAPS program manager, will introduce this item.
David Todd, MAPS Program Manager. Very happy to be bringing you this wonderful project here today. Spent a lot of time with our partner, the Diversion Hub of Oklahoma County. We have Rachel Bundy here from Reese Associates to show you this wonderful building that they have designed.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us out. We are very excited to be giving this final presentation on the Diversion Hub. I am Rachel Bundy, representing Reese Associates Architects today, along with Diversion Hub and MAPS 4. So the first slide is just a little bit of information about the Diversion Hub. They are a great organization. They are well represented today, just to show their excitement and really the need for an expansion of their facilities. They work with low-level individuals involved in the criminal justice system. They work with partnering agencies and their clients to help divert those offenders from returning to the justice system, an important need in our community right now. And one of the things I like to keep in mind is just the intent of what they'd like to see with their facility. They want to make sure that it is welcoming, is full of natural light, and is just a comfortable and welcoming space. This is the site location. It is located really just west of the downtown area. You can see the intersections of Linwood Boulevard, bordered by Northwest 6th Street, and then on the east and west side, it will be between Ellison and, I lost the street there. But one thing of note here is in the lighter green is the building site footprint, and then in the U shape around it will be the remainder of the site. This entire site will be operated and facilitated by the Diversion Hub, but MAPS 4 will be funding the building and the immediate site that it sits on, and so that's what we'll be speaking to today. So once again, the white box is the immediate site surrounding the building, a two-story office building. The parking lots and the sidewalks essentially have not changed from when we did present these plans to you all last. I know that's been some time, so if there are any questions, let me know. But essentially, the building is providing the program, functional space, and then there is a client parking lot and a staff parking lot associated with the building. The one thing just to kind of revisit here is the building and that white site are what will be funded by the MAPS funding for the project. Taking a look at the building, the ground floor, these spaces are really dedicated. The entire ground floor is dedicated to client spaces. So you have in yellow a large, comfortable lobby for the clients to come into. Diversion Hub wanted to make sure they felt comfortable, had some personal space as they came in and were waiting to be helped. And then there is a large training facility off of the lobby that can be used by the Diversion Hub or by their partner agencies. In the center of the spine there, in that green color, are where the client meeting spaces and a little bit of larger client training spaces are situated. There are also some alternative courts facilities here on the ground floor, some behavioral health facilities for assessment and determining if that's a partner that might be helpful for the client. And there's also some just donation storage area, again, for immediate needs that the clients may have when they come in. Looking at the second floor is the staff related spaces. So you have some private offices, you have some additional conference rooms. The open area there will be full of open modular workstations for both Diversion Hub team members and some of their partner agencies. And the intent here is to, one, we want to make sure the staff spaces did need to be separated from those client spaces. But they also want to keep it flexible as, the partners they work with today, may slightly adjust or flex based on, needs. So we've kept it an open and flexible space plan there. There's also an open stair that's located in the center there. It is a secure stair, but it is visually open because the Diversion Hub does want to make sure they're maintaining a strong connection with the client spaces downstairs. So it's just there's a couple visual cues in that spine area there to help them kind of keep eyes on what's going on downstairs in the client spaces and kind of determine like how busy it is or just get a sense of the activity down there. There are also some restrooms and a break space for the staff on the second floor as well. And here is a little bit of imagery. For some of you, this imagery may be new. For others, it's the same images we've presented before. Again, they want the design to be comfortable. They want it to be welcoming. You see the front door view of the Diversion Hub here from the client or public parking side. Two-story building, the large spine area there bringing natural light into the lobby and client spaces. We are on the final steps of getting the project under construction. So we have issued the final plans and specifications to MAPS and to Diversion Hub. With the intent of approval today, we are hoping to be able to bid the project out on the street tomorrow. We would then conduct a pre-construction meeting late in July. We would receive bids in early August, and our intent would be to award the contract to the selected contractor either late August or September, and for construction to occur in September. I'm jumping ahead, there's a little more of a timeline slide next. But just a couple other notes. We are working on furniture coordination for the Diversion Hub behind the scenes, and then we've also been working on the public art piece, coordinating, working with that group to submit RFQs for the artists and receive presentations from the artists, and those artists have recently been selected for the project. So here is the timeline that I was mentioning, working towards approval for bidding the project with the intent to bid it out tomorrow. We would be collecting bids in August, awarding the bids in September, and then working to get construction underway as quickly as possible after that. So working to get construction going in September of this year. As far as the updated cost estimate, when we did split out the building from the remainder of the site, we had recent cost estimates conducted, and you can see here we had the $13,023,400 construction budget from MAPS originally. We were also able to combine the $1 million for the land acquisition into the construction budget as the land was donated by the Arnall Community Funds and the Diversion Hub. So the total construction budget, $14,023,400. Our construction estimate is coming in at $13,947,000 and some change. We've also made note of a fee that's been paid to OG&E for some utility relocations to begin occurring on the site. So you can see we are within budget. On the right side of the slide, we do have a list of alternates there. When we updated the cost estimate recently, kind of splitting the site and the building out, there have been some, increases in the market. And so what we wanted to do was create a list of alternates so that on bid day, we would have options to work with as far as the, ensuring that the base building is under budget, on budget, and then also having some estimates for these alternates that are listed here, so that if there's potential funding available from the MAPS, we can fund that, or if Diversion Hub, with some of their grant contributions, may be able to fund some of those items as well. But really, it's to provide flexibility and options on the day of bids and to make sure that we are getting competitive numbers for these different options. The note at the bottom there, our NAL Community Funds grant contribution has funded the land acquisition. They'll also be funding FF&E, some of the IT equipment, and the additional parking lots and site improvements that go along with the building. So I tried not to go too quickly, but I am happy to answer any questions or revisit anything if you would like.
Any questions?
Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, thank you for your work, and you mentioned it, obviously, the Arnall Family Foundation a couple times. It always seems like that is an important thing to mention. Their philanthropic partnership on this project really makes it possible, and it's hard to miss. Obviously, we've got a lot of the Diversion team here, Diversion Hub team here today, so thank you for your work. Any other questions or comments on this item? We do have a citizen who signed up to speak on this item, Michael Washington.
Oh, please don't have your long faces. I'm not going to denounce it. I love what I see. Okay. No, now look here, y'all. Thank you, sir, for this. I'm not going to hold y'all long. I'm getting ready to leave after this. Look at you. But no, listen, seriously, man. I'm a people person, and I've actually seen the work that these people do, because of being a certified paralegal in itself naturally attaches me to, Diversion Hub type things, especially since over the years, my group, Empower People Incorporated, Oklahoma Coalition Against People Abuse, we have been instrumental in actually promoting the jail change. The things that we're talking about today, we removal of the jail and its new site and all that. For 2 straight years, my organization alone stood out and protested all the injustices, murders, and all the other negative things going on in that house of horror that I so appropriately call it. So again, this Diversion Hub is pretty good, because I think, again, it has, I've referred people to them before. And to be effective, you're going to need a big enough space to where you can feel comfortable and have enough room for Mike White to come in and drink his cup of coffee every now and then. I like being joyful. I mean, the only time I don't be joyful, though, well, if it's a hot issue that I don't like. Anyhow. But I think this is a definitely important project, man. I mean, when you talk about jails, it's not fun. You talk about prisons, it's not fun. You talk about homelessness, it's not fun. You talk about babies being on the streets. I see it every day, too. Oh, man. I know this don't particularly deal with that necessarily there, but it's really something to think about. So, again, Michael can be very serious when the time comes. But I'm just like this here, y'all. I'm an individual who just loves to be made sure that his voice is heard. There's nothing wrong with that. And I would fight for any one of you. For any injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. Back to the Diversion Hub, which I didn't forget about. Again, man, I thank you for bringing this point up. This is very important. No one in this audience, I don't believe in on this horseshoe, can tell me it's not. Because a lot of people, I can't count, there's countless people have been actually helped by this Diversion Hub. And again, before they leave, I want my shirt. Yes, ain't gonna be no more shirt wearing. Man, y'all, 49 seconds, 38, 37. This is a side of Michael Washington that you're not gonna see every day. Because I'm normally up here sitting here by the constituents.
30 seconds remaining.
30 seconds, go, oh, Amy. Oh. But y'all let me go again. I mean, it's all fun in the process. But again, it's very important that we take this serious issue seriously, and let's support this program. And I want to be put on the front page news saying that I support it. Thank y'all so much, and I'm leaving. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Item CN, Councilwoman Nice, you wanted to speak to this?
Yes, I know here we have the award contract for demolition, so I just want to make sure people are aware that it will not, the building itself is not being demolished. So I just want to be clear of what we're doing.
That's correct, and that's one thing I emphasize as we went through subcommittee and advisory board. This is multifold purpose here, and it is for selective interior demolition. The facility's been used for many things over the years and been remodeled, and there's lots of interior walls. We need to get those removed so that the architect can see the full structure in there and understand how the building is put together. It also helps us with our schedule, gets us a head start. So a contractor, when he is hired to do the essentially remodel of the place, doesn't have to spend time doing that. And it also can save us some money by doing it independently. But yes, it is just for interior things like dividing walls and mechanical systems that we're not going to use.
All right, I appreciate that. That's what I needed to know.
Okay,
And before we move on, I did want to tell the Diversion Hub, as far as this art is concerned that's coming, I know you have in your midst a really great artist. So I'm hoping we can get him involved in the pool of artists so we can get someone from the home team to be a part of what you all are doing. So I just want to give that shout out.
All right, thank you. Next up is CZ, which a separate vote was requested by Councilwoman Hammond. So we could take a motion just on that item, CZ. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 7-2. And now we are ready to adopt the remainder of the consent docket. Got a motion and a second for the remainder of the consent docket, save the items previously approved. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 10 is the concurrence docket. We have no items today, which brings item 11, items for individual consideration. Item 11A is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval, rezoning 15729 Greenwood Circle from AA to R1. Councilman Carter.
Yes, sir. Seeing that there were no protests and it was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission, I will move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11B is an ordinance on final hearing. That was recommended for approval, rezoning 7475 Southwest 15th from R1 residential and SRO to I2 moderate and SRO. Councilwoman Peck.
Has anyone signed up to speak?
Oh, sorry, no, they have not.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, item C is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval, rezoning 14700 Mezzaluna Avenue from PUD 1961 to PUD 2011. Councilman Stonecipher, no one has signed up to speak.
Yes, this is a duplex development that Planning Commission recommended approval, so at this time, I would move the item.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item D is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval, rezoning 1228 Northwest 48th from SPUD 680 to SPUD 1617. Councilman Cooper, no one has signed up to speak.
The applicant's representative is here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this project? Also, I understand you have, what's this on? Yes, you have several items, so I don't, coming up, so I don't know if you want to sit up front
If I just
or if
sit
you
in
want to
the
get
back,
some
nobody will
steps
see me.
in.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, who is also here with us, Mr. Gary Holmesy. This is a development that's right behind his law office. This was zoned in an SPUD years ago for office development. There has not been much interest in that, and so given the housing demand that we have in the core, we sought out to file an SPUD that would allow duplex development. So we met with the neighbors, had a really good meeting, made some changes based on that meeting, went to Planning Commission after that. The neighbors actually came to Planning Commission to voice their support for this. It was the Helm Farm neighborhood. Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously, and there are no TEs.
That's great. Well, I mean, I'll just emphasize a couple keywords I heard there. This area from 36 north to Expressway zone currently for office, not a demand, does not exist, doesn't exist. And so I'm really happy to see where the demand is, which is housing, come to this corridor. And I think that's something we're gonna have to think very long and hard about the properties abutting Classen as well. But I just wanna applaud you for now for working with the neighborhood and hearing their concerns, because the neighborhoods, as housing along this area converts from office, I think it's important to have their input about what that needs to look like responsibly. So with those comments, I would move for.
A motion and a second. Cast your votes.
Thank you.
Passes unanimously. Okay, next up is item E. This was recommended for approval, rezoning 11145 South Sunny Lane Road from AA to SPUD 1619. This was deferred from July 2nd. Councilman Stone, we have a couple people signed up to speak in opposition.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we go ahead and have them come up to speak, please?
Okay. Jeremy King. If you'd state your name and address and keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less.
Sure. My name is Jeremy King. I own the property at 4225 Southeast 111th Court. On the map, it is almost directly south, just to the east of that house there. My neighbor who lives in that house where the pointer is, he could not be here today, but I just wanted to bring up my continued concerns. I appreciate that they've, adopted some further restrictions, but they haven't really presented any concrete plans as to where the pad's going to be oriented and things like that to know if these are going to be reasonable enough. The other main concern that I have is we put this in, they're asking for 1 day a week. Businesses tend to grow. So it would be, once their foot's in the door, it's going to be very, very easy for them to come back to ask for another day. Now we're dealing with motorcycle noise basically right next to our backyard, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And I don't know what sort of repercussions there are in terms of violating their SPUD or how easy that is to have that enforced. The other thing that I wanted to point out was this LLC that's applying for this owns some commercial property, or not commercial properties, but additional properties just north on Sunny Lane Road. They're currently on 2 acres for this SPUD. It's up across the just north of 104th, across from the Museum of Osteology. They own 2 adjacent lots there that total just over 6 acres. Which would give them much more buffer zones to the neighbors. One is a commercial property. There are a few residences over there, but there's fewer residences against those lots than there are against our neighborhood where they're proposing the SPUD. And even if they build there, or if they use that 6 acres, there's just a lot more space for that business to grow and for the neighbors to be protected from the things that we're concerned about in that area as well.
Thank you, Jeremy. The changes that I discussed with you last week, they haven't been brought in yet, but I think they would definitely need to be if we did move forward on it.
Sure.
So, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is Andrea Ammerman.
Good morning, I'm Andrea Ammerman, 4025 Southeast 111th Court, and I'm just here to have my voice be heard that I oppose this business idea right by our neighborhood. Mostly here to speak on behalf of the neighbor that would be next to him because he's not here. It's just very, very close to our backyard, and oppose the topic. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, is the applicant present? Everett? No, again. I do have one question for Andrea and Jeremy. Jeremy, I know you've never been through motorcycle training. Andrea, have you? No? One thing I would like to do, if you guys would be interested in it, really thought the applicant would be here today since I talked to him last week. I just thought it might be interesting to see if he still has any training classes currently going on. And if he does, if you'd be maybe interested in meeting me there. And it's been a little while since I went through motorcycle training class, but I would just kind of like to go back and revisit that to see what it looks and sounds like. Would you be interested in possibly doing that? Okay.
Can I go?
Sure. Bring your Harley, okay? I don't know, I just think it would be kind of interesting to revisit that. I know for me, it personally would be. And I thought it'd be interesting maybe if you'd be interested in meeting me there as well. I will contact, and I apologize, I'm going to defer this again for another 2 weeks. I will contact the applicant again, see if that's the case, if we could do that. And then I'll reach back out to you. Andrea, I'll reach out to you as well if you'd be interested in going, just seeing what it looks like and sounds like. And
I'll attend it.
okay.
I do want to say it's pretty frustrating for.
Why don't you, if you're going to be more than like a yes, why don't you come forward and say it on the mic?
Sorry. It is frustrating that they're not here again. I didn't make it the last time, but I know Mr. Dudley did, and he's a physician who's taking off work to be here, and I've had to make quite the arrangement to be here today. I don't need to come back next time.
No,
Okay, you'll let me know.
And honestly, I think when we meet, and I mean, I think we're going to meet. When we meet, I think at the end of that, we'll probably have a good idea of where this is going. And I mean, I've got your input, and I appreciate that. I appreciate both of you showing up today. I definitely don't want to drag you up here every 2 weeks. I know it's not the most fun thing you can do in life, but I appreciate your input. You know, my goal is to see if we can somehow possibly figure out how to work this out together, right? We've all got rights to the use of our land.
Yeah, and I understand that because they've already purchased the land, and I could understand their frustration as well. Is it your goal for us to make it to a meeting if they have one within the next 2 weeks before the next meeting?
Yeah, if they have a motorcycle training class going on, either way, I'll reach out to both of you and let you know. But my proposal would be if they have a motorcycle training class going on, we just meet there and kind of observe what it sounds like, what it looks like. And then if you'd like, we can meet back over at the property and kind of outline what the TEs are, which are like the limitations.
Yeah,
of
that
different
makes
things
sense
like
because
that.
I was concerned about like where they're going to park because you can't drive your motorcycle. You're not licensed for to school, so you have to have a car, I'm assuming, and restrooms, and just all of those details that apply to the property. And I was concerned like him about the growth, like if this spud is approved and like if they got a business, like what, I have all those questions, like what happens then?
Okay.
Just that would possibly affect us.
And those
Okay,
are
that sounds
great
great.
questions.
Thank you.
so I appreciate it very much. Thank you. I'll go ahead and make a motion to defer the item again. again.
Okay, so this is a motion to defer item 11E for 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Got a motion and a second? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, next up is item 11F. This is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval rezoning 1821 North MacArthur from R4 to 1621. This was deferred from July 2nd. Councilman Cooper, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had received a note from our council staff. We've been trying to reach back out to the applicant, but after 2 voicemails, we have not heard back. And that's going to be important for us to hear back from this individual because I need to see some renderings of what they are wanting to do, largely because Maps 4 is bringing a streetscape to MacArthur. And I need the rendering to match that, to be complementary to that streetscape that's coming there. So, but we haven't heard back. And so I'll be generous and defer for 2 weeks. I request a deferral for 2 weeks, but if I don't hear something within those couple weeks, I think we're going down a different path. So.
All right, let's bring up that motion then to defer this item 11F for 2 weeks. We've got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11G is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval, rezoning 10525 Southwest 29th from R1 and PUD 1149 to SPUD 1622. Councilwoman Peck, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. So this development is presently intended to develop a credit union, which is a needed amenity for far southwest Oklahoma City. Seeing no protests at Planning Commission, I'll move for approval.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11H is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval, rezoning 1147 Northwest 41st from R1 to SPUD 1624. Councilman Cooper, no one has signed up to speak.
Yes, Mr. Box, you're representing this one? No, this is no one signed up to speak either. Okay. Let's see. Did you pull that item up there? Make sure I'm looking at the right one. Yes. Okay. Nathan, did you want to speak on this? Okay. All right. Well,
Are you just going to ask everyone in the room if they want to?
Brad? No. No, I would move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11I is an ordinance on final hearing. That was, wait, that's not the one we just did, is it?
No, it's another.
Recommended for approval at 4127 Northwest 36, going from R1 and O2 to SPUD 1626. Councilman Cooper, no one has signed up to speak.
And yet, I would like Mr. Box to share with us what's happening here.
I was hoping you'd ask.
Oh,
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This may be the most unique one I've done, maybe in a long time. This is a beef jerky manufacturing facility. So it's surrounded by industrial development to the north and to the east. There was no protest. Happy to answer any questions.
Could you go back to the slide, the 36th facing? Yes. Oh, no. Yes. Is this shaded area, this is where you're going to be constructing a sidewalk? Along, you and I spoke yesterday on the phone, and I mentioned that a sidewalk is something I'm very interested in because I know we're going to be constructing a sidewalk as part of MAPS 4, I believe, or at least there's plans over time to do some sidewalk infrastructure here. And so you said that, yes, we'll be required to do a sidewalk, but when I looked at this, I didn't see that rendering.
So in section 10 of the SPUD, which is entitled Sidewalks, we are required to install sidewalks. The purpose of the rendering is to simply show orientation of buildings parking, those things, but the SPUD specifically requires the installation of sidewalks.
Just checking. That's it. All right. Well, thank
That
you.
you can walk to get your beef jerky and then head back out.
For generations to come, people will walk from their neighborhood to beef jerky, and they'll remember this day. That's right. That's right. Or maybe, I don't know, it's suspense of a vote. I don't know how people are going to vote. Let's find out.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
Thank you.
Passes unanimously. Item 11J is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval rezoning 13010 West Reno from C3 and PUD 1086 to SPUD 1627. Councilwoman Peck Noety has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Seeing no protests at Planning Commission, I'll move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
My screen is frozen. I vote yes, please.
Passes unanimously. Item 11K is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval, rezoning 1231 Northwest 33rd from R1 to SPD 1628. Councilman Cooper, no one is signed to speak.
Happy to hear from you.
Yes. Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is an SPUD that would allow the existing building to be considered legal. This was built in the 1920s. It was built as a multifamily structure for reasons that we're not aware of. It's zoned R1 single family. My client has bought a series of these buildings throughout the metro that are non-conforming. So we've come through with a series of SPUDs to make them legal, and that's what this is doing.
And if I'm reading that right, that's more residential on Classen. Hot dog. That's great. I'll move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, item L is an ordinance on final hearing. This is the third of 3 meetings. This is the previously explained cleanup ordinance, bringing our ordinances into compliance with state and federal law. If there's no further comments or questions about this, we can take up a motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item M is an ordinance to be introduced today, set for a public hearing on July 30th and a final hearing on August 18th, and there is a presentation.
Yes. Rick Wickenkamp, our Development Services Director, will give us a quick overview of these changes proposed in this ordinance.
Morning, Mayor and City Council. Rick Wickenkamp, Director of Development Services. So the item this morning is to amend our city ordinances to make them consistent with state statute. The state statute actually went into effect several years ago, and at that time it removed about 85% of the controls that cities had on oil and gas regulations within their jurisdiction. So some of the cities planned to challenge that, and so the ordinance wasn't immediately updated, and those challenges ultimately failed. The statute was upheld, and ended up giving the city the authority to regulate traffic, noise, odors, setbacks, and fencing related to oil and gas activity. Also to regulate well locations within the 100-year floodplain. Also to regulate well locations within certain distance of city reservoirs. And also allowed cities to require permits for oil and gas activity within the cities. All the other controls or jurisdictions fell under the Corporation Commission. So at about that same time, the inspection piece of oil and gas enforcement was moved to Public Works to Development Services. So with the regulations that we could perform, we ended up with one inspector doing those inspections, and they were supervised by a management employee who had administrative knowledge of the oil and gas industry. So about a year ago, that employee retired, and so we moved the inspection piece to code enforcement so that we would have a supervisor who had field experience, and also we had other inspectors that could back up and support that oil and gas inspector as needed. When we did that, also brought us to the awareness that we needed to update this ordinance as well. So we have the ordinance here, and IT's been working with our staff to identify and map all the oil wells within the city, and they're getting very close to having that performed. The permitting aspect is still done by the Development Center. They review and issue the permits, and then code enforcement does the field inspections, which is the same arrangement we have with our business licenses. So I'd be happy then to try to answer any questions that you might have about this ordinance amendment.
All right, thanks, Rick. I do want to
Actually-
acknowledge, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right here.
Yeah.
I have one question. Are we also keeping number and count of those that are capped? Or is this strictly for just a count of physical oil wells that we know are in the city?
So I've got Scott Weiss with me this morning from the Development Center. Scott, I don't know the answer to that question. Do you know?
Yes, I don't know if this is on. Yes, we should be keeping track of those that are capped afterwards. The older historical data will be held by the Corporation Commission.
Okay, thank you. And the reason I ask that is because of a nonprofit that I've been made aware of that seeks to assist with capping oil wells in core urban areas. And they've done, I think they've worked in Tulsa, that's where it began, but I know they were looking at how they could impact the rest of, well, they're doing it all across the country, but our communities in our city as well. So that's why I'm very interested in this particular ordinance and the impacts of how we can make that work. So I'd like to just kind of stay engaged with this after the fact, if you
Okay,
don't mind.
and we can check on that and get back to you with more information.
Thank you very
So,
much.
okay.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge too, Rick is retiring. Rick's been with the city for 25 years, and this won't actually be technically his last meeting, but possibly the last meeting he's in front of us. And so for 25 years, he's worked in finance, in fire, in the city auditor's office, and then been for the last number of years in development services as the assistant director, the last 2.5 years as the director. Rick has made an impact everywhere that he's gone. He's just one of those quiet employees that just kind of gets the work done every day and represents so many other employees that we have that are just like that. So I just want to acknowledge that and just let him know how much we appreciate his work and his service for the city.
Yeah, thank you for the kind word.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick. All right, so we need to take a vote on introducing this ordinance for consideration. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. It is introduced, set for public hearing July 30th, potential final hearing August 13th. All right, item N is the public hearing regarding a proposed ordinance consolidating our design review committees. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
All right, so we'll close this public hearing and advance to the public hearing found at item O, which is on the same topic, just a different part of it. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak under this public hearing?
They have not.
All right, so we'll close that public hearing and advance to the public hearing found at item P regarding the dilapidated structure here listed. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
Since they have not, we will advance to the resolution found at P2 declaring that the structure is dilapidated. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11Q is a public hearing, Q1 is a public hearing regarding the unsecured structures here listed, except for those previously struck. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
Since they have not, we will advance to the resolution found at Q2 declaring that the structures are unsecured. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. motion, yeah, passes unanimously. Sometimes I just become a robot on these things. All right. Item 11R1 is a public hearing regarding the abandoned buildings here listed, except for those previously struck. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
They have not, and so we will look to the resolution at R2 declaring that the buildings are abandoned. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, item S1 and 2 was previously struck, which brings us to item T1. Staff has not requested an executive session on this settlement agreement with Southwestern Bell Telephone Company. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11U was previously struck, which brings us to V. I'm actually going to hold this vote. I need to recuse, so I'm going to pull this towards the other business, and we'll handle it at that point, and I will depart. So we'll come back to that. Item W, our claims recommended for denial. Executive session is not requested, and we could take these items with one motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, item 12, comments from council. Ward 1?
None today, sir, thank you.
Ward 2?
Couple things. First, congratulations to Embark and the Bus Rapid Transit. I'm sure you've already seen this news, but over 250,000 trips, people on the Bus Rapid Transit. That is commendable, and so I will commend. And I just want to thank all the Embark staff for their work and the residents of Oklahoma City for utilizing the service. There were people who've never rode a bus in their whole life, I can assure you, who have given it a go, and I think they've been rewarded for that with their experience. So just, and I also want to thank the voters who approved it back in 2017, and also acknowledge that that was a matching grant from the federal government, and that the late Senator Inhofe was quite useful in his advocacy for securing that matching grant. I also wanted to say congratulations to the people of Jefferson Park and the Paseo and Uptown District, because the first MAPS sidewalks began construction. And I'm so excited about this. Poor City Manager Freeman's already heard this, because I mentioned this on our Transit Trust the other day. But those sidewalks that we're constructing on Chartel right now from 23rd Street are connecting Uptown District along Chartel, along where many of this city's founders have found their eternal resting place in Fairlawn. But those sidewalks are going to connect from Uptown along Chartel into the Paseo District. So we're connecting two districts with that walkability infrastructure. Then to the west, that sidewalk infrastructure continues connecting to a third district, the Asian district, to Super Cowan grocery store right there, to the Bus Rapid Transits there in the Asian district as well. So that sidewalk infrastructure is critical, and it's a bit different, the MAPS for sidewalks, than the previous sidewalks insofar as that a lot of it's infill, right? So there was a lot of broken sidewalks, or you'd have sidewalks and then there would just be poof, a lawn. So if you were in a wheelchair or some sort of mobility device, how are you navigating, right? And that just always felt disrespectful, not only to those residents who might be seniors or with a stroller, or the people who have the different, maybe a disability, but quite frankly, the fact that our city's founders are buried in that cemetery right there, it's just like, what are we doing, So I'm just so excited about that. I've already made a very specific request to City Manager Freeman that I would like to see these sidewalks as they go in. And I know it's a little bit difficult since it's infill sometimes, but my request is, there's WPA, Works Project Administration insignia along Good Home Park, where, you know, we invested in ourselves back then, and now almost 100 years later, we see signs of that investment, and I'd like to see that in those sidewalks, if you wanted to speak to that.
Yes, sir. I did talk to David Todd. He did show me, we've got a medallion, and a Maps for medallion that goes into the surface on those sidewalks periodically, and doing the same thing on the bus stop. So areas where we can acknowledge that permanently, we're definitely taking those actions. So you were ahead of the game.
You know, but it takes a team, so I'll take it. That's wonderful. Thank you for that update. And just a couple more notes. One is Councilwoman Nice. Forgive me, I did not congratulate you on your recent win, Senator-elect. So, and then a happy birthday, I believe, to Councilwoman Hammond. So, just wanted to acknowledge those things. And then I just wanted to also say thank you to the, I think it was Universal Pictures who reached out to the Oklahoma Film Critics Circle to invite us last night to an advanced screening of Twisters. What I was not prepared for when I looked at that email was when I asked my friend Johnny to join us as my guest, he did a little research. He's like, James, this is a red carpet event? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he showed me an Oklahoman article where, yeah, we had, was it Glenn Powell? The director was here. I mean, it was something. Apparently, City Council got emails inviting us to attend as well. I didn't know. So it was a really nice moment, I have to tell you, as two of my nerd sensibilities, both from the political sphere and my film sphere, just colliding at once. It was really cool to see my next door neighbor, Liz, who I mentioned up here, who works on film sets, electricity, that's her whole imagination. Seeing her there and just seeing the crew, the workers, get a chance to sit in that crowd alongside these big celebrities, alongside the Lieutenant Governor. Mayor Holt was there, Councilwoman Peck was there. To see the workers alongside these elected officials, I just think that is just so magical. I'll always remember last night for that. And so I just want to thank everybody who helped make that possible. I also want to thank council for passing that tax incentive at the local level because it paid off, and you saw that last night. I suspect some box office numbers are going to reward you as well. I do, however, want to last council meeting, Councilwoman Nice acknowledged that I had the honor of serving as the Grand Marshal for the Downtown Pride. And I wanted to bring two items today on that note. My friend Johnny, who attended last night with me, the premiere of Twister, handmade this sash. One more time, by hand, made this, crafted it. If you are someone who follows fashion or music, then you probably recognize the reference. This is similar to the sash that Beyonce wears on the cover of Cowboy Carter. I mean, that's the level of detail, and he didn't tell me that he was doing this. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this yet. This to me, it's not about being the Grand Marshal. It is about the fact that I had a friend who just had that. That is just wonderful. The other item is from a film screening I hosted back in 2008 from my former life as a film critic, before I was the vice president of the Oklahoma Film Critics Circle. This is something that Focus Features sent. This was a t-shirt from went on to win an Academy Award, Milk, which is on the back here. The words "never blend in" are right here on the front. Focus reached out for us to host that screening. It was a gay online newsletter that I was a critic for at the time. Packed, same theater, same Harkins Bricktown, just packed. The film won for Best Screenplay adapted from a documentary I had seen as an undergrad 2 years earlier called The Times of Harvey Milk. It also won for Sean Penn Best Actor. I can't watch Milk regularly. It is a really well-made film, but I can't watch it regularly because if you've seen it, you know how it ends. And how it ends is how it ended in real life, which was our first openly gay elected official in this country, Harvey Milk. An assassin's bullet took his life barely a year into office. It also took the life of Mayor George Moscone. A fellow council member took both of their lives, killed them. For no other reason than he was anti-gay. Harvey had just defeated an attempt by the state legislature at the time to remove teachers from their jobs because they were gay. And the rhetoric they used was, in the campaign, was that teachers were pedophiles if they were gay. And so even when faced with data showing that 95% of pedophilia comes from straight people, the state Senator Briggs said, yeah, but if you can just remove that 5%, I mean, that is just pure madness. It's dangerous madness that led to the assassination of Harvey Milk and George Moscone. And when Councilman Carter, Councilwoman Nice and I flew to a homelessness conference in San Francisco in March, they have a memorial within that airport dedication to Harvey. So when I talk about Harvey Milk being the first openly gay council member, elected official, I don't talk about that just because you need to know what was going on in his bedroom. I talk about it because of the laws at the time that literally made it illegal for someone like him to be in a consensual, age-appropriate relationship with someone of the same sex. Every state but Illinois, it was illegal in 1971, just 7 years before Harvey's life ended, right? And that stayed on our books here until 2003. 10-year imprisonment here in Oklahoma for being gay. So I don't just talk about this stuff, and I didn't bring this Grand Marshal sash to show off me. I did it because for the whole week heading into that ride and that parade, I had to talk to my brain to say to it, you're safe. You're safe and you're loved. Because there's a fear part that I always have to talk myself out of. But what a reward, because I got 2 messages later from Instagram from kids that I was waving at from the route. And what did I say to them? I said, your outfit looks great. I like your fan with sleigh on it. And they messaged me later, family members did, and said, someone outed my brother at 17 in school. And the simple act of me saying that his fan was cool, that he made himself, it turned out, was such a big deal. Or to the other person, I had complimented just their outfit, and I got a message where they said that the moment a sitting elected official complimented their outfit, that was the happiest moment of their life. The simple act of validating another human being's existence, that it's okay to be who they are, that is a very powerful thing. And so I did watch Milk in the days before that parade, because you got to put on your big boy pants sometimes, and I did. And Harvey said in that movie, that it is so important to elect gay people for exactly that reason. 100 years ago, World War I began because we could not live together in the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. It was impossible. Slovaks didn't have the right to vote. Poles didn't have the right to vote. Czechs, Hungarians, the Roma, the Serbs, the Croats, the Bulgarians, the Italians. You couldn't vote in that empire unless you were German and Austrian. And all of the other ethnicities in that empire were denied the right to vote. Denied it because they weren't seen as equal. They had no representation in their government. That lack of representation led to an assassin who became so disenchanted with government, didn't believe it could deliver the way that we're delivering sidewalks, diversion hubs. That madman became so disenchanted with government that his assassin's bullet took the life of Archduke Ferdinand, who had the intent, and this is the tragedy, Greek level, the intent of giving each of those ethnicities the right to vote. And that assassin had no idea. And he killed him and his wife. I know you all have been troubled over the news over the last few days about the political violence we have experienced. Violence has been with us from the beginning, and it is the question in front of us: can we live beside one another and respect each other as human beings? It is a simple question that they couldn't quite answer heading into World War I. It was a simple question they could not answer when they took George Moscone's life and Harvey Milk's life. They couldn't answer when someone tried to take the life of our former president, took the life of someone attending that rally, of the trans people we see dead constantly, black and brown, different religions. This has to be the calling of a nonpartisan government, that we live together peacefully, neighborhood by neighborhood. If our sidewalks can connect us, then it's time that we better connect ourselves to each other as well. So, thank you for hearing that.
Thank you. Ward 3?
Just another shout out to the Twisters movie that we were all able to view last night. It was incredible. I strongly recommend everybody to see it in a theater. Just don't go at night. I was pretty charged after the movie. It was really good. And then secondarily to that, you know, just a tremendous amount of respect to Senator Inhofe and his family that supported him over his lifetime of service to our country. First opportunity I had to meet with Senator Inhofe, I was a college student volunteering through our college organizations, and had an opportunity to meet him way back. And just an incredible person, and very personable, and just the contribution to aerospace and to Tinker here for our state, and just the other things that he's contributed nationally. Deserve our respect and our deepest condolences to the Inhofe family, and thank you for, you know, supporting him through his years of service. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 4? Ward 5?
Yeah, excuse me. Last Wednesday, Thursday, I had the pleasure of ribbon cutting the Earlywine Golf Course, which turned out really, really beautiful. Anybody who wants to meet me out there for lunch, I've had lunch there. It's delicious. Well, bye. Secondly, wait a minute, that wasn't for the public. I'd like to congratulate the city of Norman, because 2 weeks ago, they swore in my son as the Ward 6 city councilman. So congratulations to my son for winning the Norman city council race. That's it.
Wow. Ward 6? Ward 7?
Thank you. First, I want to give a birthday shout out to a gentleman by the name of Clyde Houston. Mr. Houston will be 104 years old tomorrow. His family threw him a birthday party this past Saturday, and Mr. Houston decided he wanted to get dressed and did not want to go. So that's one of the things. When you get older, you just do what you want to do. Nobody can tell you what you can and can't do. And I think that speaks to the legacy of a person who was a World War II Army veteran, as well as a Negro League baseball player, and the father of 8 children who still lives in our Crescent Hills neighborhood. Just being able to celebrate with his children, and I believe I've met him before at our senior center before they transitioned to the new location when he turned 100. So just a blessing to be the age of 104 tomorrow. So as I'm sure one of our oldest centenarians of our city, I think it's very important
to honor the legacy of Mr. Houston. And one of the things that also happened during that party that I know his children were able to give him was a letter from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs to commend him and thank him, one, for his service, but also for being alive and well and still engaging with our Veterans Hospital and our Veteran Affairs. And so next time I see him, I will ask him what the key to longevity is. But I do know and understand that his daughter said that he is a praying man. So I can tell you now, I'm sure from him being involved and in the things that he did, from being a World War II Army veteran as well as playing in the Negro League baseball era, that this young man has lived long enough to tell quite a few stories of change that have happened throughout his lifetime and ours. So again, happy birthday, 104th birthday to Mr. Clyde Houston on tomorrow. I wanted to also give a little special shout out to our solid waste department. I know they had to do some double duty last week. So not only did they have to pick up our trash, and bulky waste, they had to come back and pick up our trees. So I just want to commend them and thank them. And I would see them sometimes in the street, and I'd wave and ask, when y'all come to get these trees? And they finally told me they're coming to get the trees. So some of us didn't know if they were going to pick them up, who was going to pick them up. But it's always the city to the rescue. So very grateful for our solid waste team and the things that they do. And I know we were talking about the River Bowl that is coming, but what is happening now at the river is RoFest. So that's one of our USA events, and it kicked off this weekend, and they actually watched Twister in the river, like somewhere in the basin of the river this weekend. So that's why I was confused about the Twisters. I thought that was the Twister, not the Twister last night. So we had two Twisters. Who knew? But being able to celebrate the Twister that was coming, they were able to already see the one that happened. So they're here, and some more events are happening throughout the week. And if you get a chance, please enjoy what is happening on the river. And lastly, I want to mention and thank our city CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau, Zach Craig, because I did ask him, please help me to make sure we can make this a successful event. There were about over 900, I would say 1,000 Black women in our city downtown for the Delta Sigma Theta 51st Charismatic and Courageous Central Regional Conference. And this is the first time they've been in our city since 1995. So for that many women, and this happened to be the largest conference for the Central region in our history. So for that many women to travel from all of our surrounding states, I think the furthest state was either Iowa or Montana, to come to Oklahoma City, I heard nothing but good things as far as the expectations and goals that they saw. Of course, a lot of people are quite surprised when they come to our city because of what they think it is, and then when they come, they see something totally different. So it was very exciting to welcome our women here and for them to see the city lit up very red. So the Scissortail was red a couple of nights. Bricktown was red a couple of nights. Devon Tower was red the first night. And our fellow mayor from St. Louis, Tashara Jones, was also here. She's a fellow, one of the members of this organization. So that was a beautiful surprise to have run into her during her time here in Oklahoma City. I know our ladies were hoping for our leadership as well to be present. And that's very unfortunate that they did not get to see that because our international president was here. Our past international presidents were here. So those were some powerful women that were in our city. to experience what we do in Oklahoma City. So I just think it's very important for us to be engaged with all of these types of conferences, whether they are big, whether they are small, because those small conferences spend a lot of money just as much as those big conferences. So this was the first time I've ever seen a dominant conference such as this that has been held at the Oklahoma City Convention Center, and to see how the rooms are used, the exhibition hall, and everything else that we are able to allow for the use for our public facilities, to get the use out of our public facilities for our residents and those that come to visit. So very grateful again to our regional directors and for our Oklahoma City and Oklahoma alumni and collegiate chapters that help to host our women coming here in Oklahoma. So I'm not sure where the next one will be, but I know our national convention will be in Washington, D.C. next year, so that tells you the magnitude. And there are over 350,000 women that are a part of this organization. So that just, again, tells you how powerful these groups can be, and the spending power, I want to acknowledge more so than anything. So again, it's very unfortunate that they weren't able to see our leadership to speak to them and greet them while they were here.
Ward 8.
On Sunday afternoons, I like to sit down and read various articles on Oklahoma City from many publications, many sources. This past Sunday, I came upon an article, it may be my favorite, about Oklahoma City. It's entitled, "Oklahoma City Recognized as Best Run Large City in the United States." And so I want to congratulate Craig, Amy, Kenny, all our staff, all our employees who come every day and make this city a much better place. The article says, and I think it's appropriate, this recognition highlights Oklahoma City's successful management and efficient use of public funds, ensuring high-quality services for its residents. The city's impressive ranking is an indication of the effective leadership and strategic decision-making by its local officials. There were 6 categories they looked at: financial stability, education, health, safety, economy, and infrastructure. So again, Craig, congratulations on this great ranking for our city. Secondly, I'd like to thank the Arnell Community Fund. City Rescue received a $1 million+ grant from the Arnell Community Fund. It is for a housing program. According to City Rescue Mission, the funds will go towards the Hope Lives Here housing program. So thank you, Arnell Community Fund. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Now we're on citizens to be heard, and we have Michael Washington, who is not in the room, Capri Gordon.
Good morning, Council. My name is Capri Gordon. I am from Ward 6, and I'm speaking in regards to the ceasefire resolution, the impending resolution. I've lived in Oklahoma my entire life. When I was young, I felt ashamed of this state because we didn't have a Disney World or a bougie mall. Superficial, but as a child, you want for the nice things that other people have. But I was reassured that I had it good. There are starving kids in Africa, I was told. When I have children, 10 years from now, will I tell them there are dying children in Gaza? Maybe my parents would have said that to me had they been informed. There are dying children in Gaza, they'd say. Maybe my grandparents could have said that to my parents in the 80s. There are dying children in Gaza, they'd say. Maybe my great-grandparents could have said that to my grandparents had they been informed. There are dying children in Gaza. That would have been the 50s. Realize that this could be a 100-year-long genocide. Recognize the first major slaughter and displacement of the Palestinian people as it happened in 1948, 75 years before the most recent relapse into genocidal war practice. As an adult, I decide to stay in Oklahoma, but I find my feelings of shame towards this state is different. I don't need a mall or a tower, but There is a certain comfortable passivity that affects many of our family, friends, neighbors, sometimes me, and sometimes you. A passivity that prohibits more empathetic, perhaps creative problem solving. A passivity that is spread when leading through example. A passivity that perhaps you learned from your leaders, be it at school, church, or work. That familiar feeling of pushing down and out to keep up the veil of peace and prosperity in the state and in your personal life that make us as Oklahomans complicit in terrible things. When considering this resolution and this crisis at large, I ask that the state, its leadership, and citizens cease to put up this veil that keeps you from aching for the Palestinian people. When you're voting on this ceasefire resolution, you are voting on whether or not you want to cease this comfortability of turning a blind eye. Thank you.
Thank you. Nadia Rashid.
Hi, my name is Nadia Rashid. I live at 5609 Northwest 111th Street, and I'm also here to talk to you about the ceasefire resolution. In the last few months, I've come to City Council a lot. I've talked to you about the horrific things I've seen, from beheaded toddlers to children's bodies strung from buildings in strips, to children with all of their limbs amputated without anesthesia. And yet, I sense that many of you are not moved by these horrors the way I would hope you would be. I'll be honest, I don't understand how anyone could see the images that I'm seeing and not want to see an end to the violence. I don't understand how anyone could hear that children are being slaughtered and not want to see it end. Many of you have your own children at home. I don't have kids yet, but I'd like to one day, and I don't know about you, but I want to live in a world where my kid's life has value. I want to live in a world where people care about my child not dying a horrific death. And I firmly believe that calling for a ceasefire is a step in this direction. I want to ask you, what would you do if someone came to your house, broke down the front door, and insisted that you must leave forever? For most Americans, the answer is, I would shoot them with my gun. But yet when Palestinians are faced with IDF soldiers breaking down their door and ordering them to leave their homes with nothing but what they can carry, they are considered terrorists for resisting. Even the International Court of Justice has deemed what is being done wrong and has demanded that the violence stop. Leaders all across the world are calling for an end to the genocide, so why can't we follow suit? I have lived in Oklahoma for my whole life, 22 years, and I know my fellow Okies do not stand for violence, racism, and Islamophobia. I run several social media accounts about politics, and I talk to people in real life about politics every day. And the people of Oklahoma are incredibly in favor of a ceasefire. Think of how many people you've seen come to City Council to talk about a ceasefire compared to the one singular person who has ever spoken in opposition to it. To me, that makes it pretty clear that the people support a ceasefire. If you oppose an end to violence, I think you should ask yourself why. Why do you believe that it is okay to kill a child? Is it because they're a different color than you? What crime could a child possibly commit that would deem them worthy of being sniped, starved, or bombed? What threat does a baby in an incubator pose?
30 seconds
And why are
remaining.
these young lives not worth protecting to you?
Thank you. Yasmin Abishu? Feel free to properly pronounce your name.
Yasmin, 10213 Jetty Court, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. 3 days ago, the Zionist state of Israel bombed a refugee camp, initially killing over 100 Palestinians with no functioning hospitals in Gaza. That number has risen. There is no healthcare system left in Gaza. Last month, after designating Rafah as a safe zone for displaced Palestinians, Israeli forces repeatedly bombed the refugee tents in the city. Videos of burnt tents and bodies and people with blown off limbs and decapitated children have shocked our conscience as a collective. There is no safe zones in Gaza because the US and Israel. 2.3 million people have no refuge from these continuous massacres. These attacks continue to follow the International Court of Justice's ruling demanding that the Zionist regime halt its military assault on Rafah and provide aid and open the crossing into Egypt. Earlier this year, the ICJ also ruled that Israel's ongoing brutality in Gaza is capable of falling within the provisions of the Genocide Convention in the United Nations. Unfortunately, the Zionist regime's defiance to international law has exceeded levels of barbaric war crimes against the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. There has been an increase in illegal detentions, in addition to documented cases of torture and sexual violence against men and women by the Israeli Defense Forces. Furthermore, the death toll in the West Bank has surpassed 700 since October, fatalities including children and airstrikes on refugee camps. Men, women, and children are being mercilessly slaughtered by military forces funded by the United States. Palestinians are living in conditions that have been deemed hell on earth by the United Nations Relief Works Agency based in Palestine. A recent study published by the Lancet Medical Journal, one of the most trusted peer-reviewed sources, found the estimated death toll will be around 186,000 in the coming weeks if we continue to allow Israel to bomb Gaza, cut off aid, and ruin their water sources, and all other hundreds of violations of international law. The death toll in Gaza has surpassed any other major conflict of the 21st century, and over 1 million people are facing catastrophic hunger due to the forced starvation by Israel. Every day, more than 10 children suffer the loss of limbs due to the ongoing bombardment, while surgeries are conducted without anesthesia as hospitals are actively targeted by bombings, and aid has been restricted. The United States has continuously abused its power as a United Nations member and stood in the way of
30
calling
seconds
for
remaining.
peace and recognition of the state of Palestine. We demand that our city, the city of Oklahoma City, take a stand and call for a ceasefire in Gaza and join other cities across the globe standing for humanity. For those who aren't familiar with a ceasefire resolution, they often condemn anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and xenophobia. It also calls for immediate, durable, sustained ceasefire in Gaza to protect and save human lives, which allow for humanitarian aid through the Gaza Strip, which are required by international law. So really, all it is stating that OKC supports international law. Not really sure why so many of you continue to oppose that. I'm also not sure why so many of you
Thank you.
continue
You're
to do
over
everything
time.
in your power
Appreciate
to
it.
oppose Palestinian existence.
Next up is Brian Smith.
Tough to follow that. This makes my problem sound a little bit more minor. But my name is Brian Smith. This is Eddie Copeland. I own a flooring store here in Oklahoma City called Big Bob's Flooring Outlet. I believe it's in Mrs. Nice's ward. We're here to kind of share our experiences with a homeless encampment that continues to grow right outside of our building, and it's having an impact on our business and several of the businesses in that area. I was going to ask Eddie to kind of share. He's there every day. He gets to see what's going on and the impact. So,
well, first and foremost, I just want to thank you guys for your time. And for those of y'all that get to watch the movie Twister, the production team bought all of the flooring for the 3 houses they built in Chickasha at Big Bob's Flooring. All right? We are the leader in flooring in the state of Oklahoma, largest inventory. My issue is for the last 3 years, every Monday I call Oklahoma Action City and speak to a young lady by the name of Vanessa. She knows me as Squeaky because I will be the squeaky wheel. Continue to call and express my concerns. Over the last probably 3 to 4 weeks, I've been having customer concerns. It began when my wife came to visit me. She won't come back by my job because at that corner of 44th and I-35, they built tents there. So she wouldn't even pull up to an intersection at the light because she was afraid that there might be somebody in the tent and run out on her car. The week after that, another customer came. Her husband came back to pay for his order and said his wife couldn't come back to the store. She had to pull a gun out because she was so nervous when she was sitting at that intersection. Just 4 days ago, a customer came in, they missed the turn and had to go back by Jack in the Box, sitting at that corner, and a fight broke out on the corner, and it scared them to death. What am I trying to say to you is that that corner is becoming to look like California, San Francisco. And I heard the great things you read Sunday in the paper about Oklahoma City. This is not what we're about.
30
we
seconds
need to do
remaining.
something about that corner. It is becoming dangerous. It's impacting our business. It's the reason we chose to come here. Our customers are fearful of coming to our facility because the only way you can leave is to go to that intersection at 44th and I-35. Thank you so much for your time. And Ms. Vanessa has been an amazing help because they send Shine down to come and clean it up, and then an hour later, they're back. It's horrible.
I'm sure
Yeah,
staff would love to.
I'm glad to have someone visit with you afterwards. We have had other folks mention this area and the problems we're having there. We've had our homeless outreach team out there trying to make contact with the people that are there to see if we can get them into housing. But we're also looking at that to make sure we can try to clean it up. It's one that, it's similar to what we had at I-44 and Penn, and took some measures to try to close that camp down, or the camps that were around there where it was creating a problem. So glad to work with you all and have some more conversations about that, but we're certainly focused in that area.
Thank you.
How do we get a hold of you?
Was it, I'll just reach out to you right after the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you so much for your time. And my wife sent me some information about what's called Key to Home.
Yes.
It's a program
Yes.
that's available, and that's how I found out. Man, you probably don't know me, but
You're actually in Ward 4. Your property's in Ward 4.
Oh, is that where we are?
Yes, sir.
That would be me.
Oh, that big old
It's
map
okay.
that shows
And
us.
I appreciate
So,
y'all
Todd, you
coming
need to reach
down
out.
and sharing this. Believe me, I'm totally aware of it, and I feel like I keep trying to escalate it. And to be honest with you, I mean, the city goes in, like you said, they clean it up. I get people going, oh, thank you so much, and then they call me back 2 hours later and go, and it's bad again. And it's not just it's not just 44th and I-35. It stretches all the way up I-35. But we're aware of it, and believe me, I'm trying to work on it on my side to do anything potentially that we can to resolve this issue. And I have a ton of empathy for our homeless. The problem I have is there are areas out there where it's not, hey, they're just homeless. I've had areas in my ward where the outreach teams won't even go talk to them because they are so afraid themselves.
Police officers have said that to us.
Yeah, that they won't even go out there. And it's like, well, then, we've got to address it, and we've got to hold some people accountable for their actions. So, again, I appreciate it. I will talk to you as well when we leave, so.
Would love to partner with you somehow.
Thanks.
Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you. All right, that concludes citizens to be heard. Now we're going to back up to item 11V. OC Law is the Proud Home of the Innocents Project, which worked very closely with the plaintiff here on the underlying issues. So in an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse from any consideration on this lawsuit. So I'm going to turn it over to Vice Mayor Peck to conduct the vote and lead the council into executive session and to return and adjourn.
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll take a motion to enter into this executive session. So that item passes. We will now recess into executive session, and when we are completed, we will return to adjourn.
And we are back from executive session and adjourned for the day. Thank you.